The President of Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce, Prince Dapo Adelegan, thank you very much for being my guest on Business Trends today. Now, let me start by asking you, a couple of days ago, the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, signed into an operational mode the 2017 budget. What do you make of this?
This government came into power with a lot of promise in regards to change in the way business government is run, change in terms of priority for things that has to do with a new image for the country, change in terms of the way compassion will be at the center of all government policy and exertion. And if you look at the budget, it's meant to be the operational manifesto in action of any government. So you'll expect it to be in place by the third quarter of the preceding year for effective management from the first day of a new year. But coming 9 months, 6 months into the new year, and 3 months late in terms of its design, can only be very disappointing.
Okay, interesting. Now, what do you think what's the message we are passing to our international trade partners and the international agencies that are ready to do business with us?
No, it just continues to show that we're not serious as a nation. It just shows that nothing has been learnt. It shows that between the executive and the legislature, there is a lacuna, that they're not in tune with a common vision. And that is interesting for a party that has majority in both houses of parliament and is also leading the executive. So there's a political undertone of, there's a lot of political challenge within APC that needs to be resolved very quickly, or else the next 2 years will be a disaster, and the possibility of even coming back to power will be a big challenge. There'll be no justification for it. For businesses, that is very sad, because no decision can be taken in a government-led economy like ours when the budget has not been passed. And as a matter of fact, in the next 3 months, companies and institutions will be making their own plan and budget for 2018. So in a way, I'm not certain how this will pan out, but it is not good for the polity. Even in terms of foreign direct investment, it's a major challenge. Except there is a recalibration in the areas of some rejigging, of the structures of governance very quickly in terms of a new paradigm shift from the way it used to be, maybe a new accommodation between the National Assembly and the executive, so that all of the things that are causing the delays and the rancors can be put aside for the sake of this country. When you put together the agitations and the quick notices from different ethnic groups to another, we are laying the foundation for a disintegration. And it is not rocket science. It is simply because there is no bigger vision, there is no new hope, and therefore this government may need to quickly establish a renewal and transformation policy that affects the way business is done, that affects our feel of responsibility to the people that voted them in, and in implementation of plans expeditiously, because the greatest danger of a delayed budget is that policies cannot materialize. There's no expenditure, there's no impact. All of the promises cannot be attained, and that's why I said it's unfortunate.
Now, looking at it vis-a-vis the Democracy Day speech of this administration, read by, of course, the acting president, do you think there's that likelihood that even when we get out of recession, probably before the end of the year, we're not likely to still be on the same track?
I didn't listen to the speech. I read excerpts of the speech because I was not available on that day in Nigeria. But what comes across to me is that the Vice President is doing his best to project the image of a responsible government that's also determined to keep Nigeria one. And I think that's solid. However, what will keep Nigeria one going forward is a national rebirth and national renewal. It's not palliatives. It's not speaking to, aspirations and calling into moral suasion. It has to be a grand plan, grand gestures. Even in the fight for corruption, there was a grand closure that convinces the rank and file of this country that change is at hand. I think the government is very timid in doing what is necessary to give a new hope, a new transaction, a new narrative for this country. And that is, like I said, a renewal, a national rebirth and renewal strategy that must be followed with bold moves, transformational statements and action. We haven't seen that.
Now, what is your assessment of the economic recovery and growth plan?
Ambitious, but whatever plan that speaks to renewal and rebirth that does not have the buy-in of the people, call it through propaganda if you like. We need to win hearts, back the hearts of Nigerians. The same Nigerians that voted President Buhari in overwhelmingly across the country. There is disappointment in the land that they've been taken for granted, that the government was too slow to do the right thing. And now there's even doing it, the president is not available, his health is challenging, and there's a rumor of war, rumor of coup, rumor of secession, rumor of breakdown, exits, cards from one ethnic group. That is not what Nigerians bargained for. So the question is that whatever economic plan or agenda that is embedded in that plan, Nigerians have not been sold on it. The government is speaking over their heads. The private sector is not Nigeria alone. There has to be a propaganda that creates a new hope and internal rebranding for Nigerians. Something they can hold on to convincingly, and gestures by government through sacrifice, through self-denial, through gestures, symbolic gestures, that convinces them that indeed this is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. Without those grand gestures, without a national rebirth and a national transformation strategy, it's going to take even 2 steps and you can see the result. And in spite of all of the grandstanding, there's disintegration ahead of us. The language of the reaction of Nigerians is that we want to go to our tents. Why will it be? If all of the gestures are making impact, that won't happen. It's not the corrupted fighting back. This is not it. It is that the people that are behind this government are saying, you are not talking our language. Our views, our aspiration are not taken into cognizance. Yes, you are assisting the banks, you are assisting businesses, you are assisting SMEs. What is the population of that group to the whole of this country? Where is the public enlightenment campaign that is heavy to tell Nigerians this is the time that calls for sacrifice? This is the time that calls for thrift. This is the time to call for unity. How many states, how many road shows have been held in the country by the president and the vice president to tell them this is what we meant, this is the rot, this is the sacrifice that we have to do before we get out of it. Do we have vanguards in schools, in workplaces that are singing change without bold transformation, renewal gestures and activation in the next few months? We may not have a country to call out.
Interesting. Now, I want us to look at monetary policy. You'll agree that there is need for Nigeria to achieve a competitive and real effective exchange so that non-export do not take advantage of price competition. How is this feasible? For example, on the Article 4 of the International Monetary Fund, what are your comments, particularly on the issues of inflation and growth for the ERPG?
Well, I think the central bank is doing what it should do when you have a desperate and unnatural situation, to ensure that you strike a balance between trying to keep the naira at a responsible level so it doesn't crash, because that has its own attendant effect. At the same time, allow some flexibility to allow you to respond to market forces. And I think that that is the only strategy that can work in an uncertain situation. We are in an uncertain and unnatural situation where the price of oil is sliding, and that's our main source of revenue. Where the investment that's required to bring about new income in exports, particularly in solid minerals and agriculture, is light years ahead. We will need to continue and increase a sustained level of investment in agriculture, mechanization, agri value chain, transportation. We need to do a lot of money in solid minerals. Rebuild the rails that will take the solid minerals from the areas of excavation to the ports. Investment in roads and rail lines that can carry most of our cargo and reduce the cost of transportation, because when you take the cost of transportation in agriculture, for example, that affects prices. And without rail, agricultural output will be expensive because of the high cost of transportation. But when there's rail, that price crashes, there's movement from the farm into the goods faster, there's preservation, and at an affordable price. So I would even say that we have not satisfied our domestic opportunities as a country. So if we have not been able to galvanize agriculture from across the divide out of the policy of Lagos State in partnering with state governments like Kebbi and other states, which is a very, very dynamic and forward-looking strategy that the states begin to trade within themselves, particularly landlocked states like Lagos, begin to deal with those that have agriculture, buy into them, and also, provide the funding. We don't have to look outside for everything. There are some things that are inside. And so, to a large extent, I'm saying, in an unnatural situation, in a war-like situation, the policies that are taken must be contextualized. And I think that's what we should look at the monetary policy, that it is being done this way within the context of our current situation, which is very unnatural, and where we are torn between the paradox of saving the currency and allowing market forces to have its way.
What are your comments, particularly on the issues of inflation and growth plan for the ERPG?
Well, like I said, it's a paradox. Do you pursue growth or do you contain whatever? I think growth is critical, but within the context of, inflation that is controlled. Because if you allow both, growth for what? Incidentally, when I even ask what growth is Nigeria looking for? If we do not have an inclusive society, for example, let me take housing, for example. If the government decides today that it is going to acquire and put a lot of money, and National Assembly does the law of foreclosure that will allow local and put the money in mass housing, and every 18-year-old plus who has a job is given access, even at zero contribution, to housing, there's going to be an implosion. And, it will cascade down the entire economy. But the overriding benefit will be higher productivity. Because the moment everybody have access to housing, there's a renewed commitment to productivity. Because nobody wants to lose his job or a job whose income is tied to the housing. Because they know that with the law of foreclosure in place, within 2 or 3 calls of missed payments, your property is foreclosed, isn't it? And that keeps you focused on your work and respect for constitutional authority. So housing, mass housing, as a single pill, can lead to higher productivity and can lead to more responsible citizenry. And don't forget, when a country is getting out of a depression, like we have economic recession, housing, mass housing, is one area of expenditure that impacts on all, even food sellers begin to see increase in demand. So we don't need to go far to reinvent the wheel. Other societies have used issues like mass housing as tool of social reengineering, higher productivity, and inclusion. So growth cannot just be growth, at all levels. You pick one area that can catalyze growth in multiple areas and lead to economic growth. And this is where knowledge comes to play.
What are your thoughts on the executive order recently signed by the acting president on the ease of doing business and fast-tracking the budget process?
Very good. Belated, but still timely. As a couple of weeks ago, I was in London with Yewande Sadiku, the head of the NIPC, who represented the Honourable Minister for Investment, Trade and Industry, to speak to investors in the UK about the ease of doing business. So the Chamber is very supportive and is ready to provide platforms for the government, locally and internationally, to speak to some of the low-hanging fruits of this executive order. And the executive order is coming well, like I said, belated, but coming at the right time. We can see impact of that on the processing in the ports. We can see the consolidation of activities within the airports as well. But the reality is that it is not a palliative, but it's not enough. Okay? Because the players in these sectors, in the airports, as well as the seaports, are Nigerians. And they have issues. There is a need for further integration of the various agencies, so it doesn't become a competitive platform. And you know the tendency where MDAs don't cooperate in Nigeria. So I think that the government must go one step ahead to bring an integration capacity into the MDAs, to see the one as serving one country and one purpose. Because, and the funny thing, this will go on for the next 2-3 months, and after that, they will shift their attention and will go back again to zero. So sustainability will be critical, okay? Integration will be critical, capacitation will be critical in ensuring that these executive orders are sustained. But overall, this is what Nigeria should be doing. And the engagement with the people that are doing the ease of doing business ranking, the World Bank, is already currently being done by government to speak to the areas that are critical for us. If Rwanda could do it from 145 to 20 something or 35 in less than 5-6 years, Nigeria can do it in less years. So it's the engagement with those who decide the ranking to say, look, we're doing a lot of things already that you're not capturing, and there are things we need to do better to ensure we can, because this is critical for foreign direct investment and the general climate of economic growth within the country, even the brand perception of Nigeria as a country.
How do you explain the difference between ease of doing business and economic prosperity?
There is no difference, because one is a chicken and egg situation, which comes first. I think that prosperity, sustainable prosperity, is dependent on happy citizenry, a strong social welfare foundation, a poverty cushion that enables people to still live a decent life in spite of their circumstances, a huge investment on infrastructure and mass housing. Now, none of this can be done within a declining economy without foreign direct investment. And not just because of the money that will come in, but because of the capacity that follows that investment. If you say our toilets at the Murtala Mohammed Airport are not clean in spite of all of the things we're doing, it is because of human factor. But the day the airport is concessioned and somebody has paid huge money to run and he has to make money from that airport, that same toilet with the same Nigerian staff will change immediately. Because it's no more a government entity, it is now a private sector entity. So the privatization of critical infrastructure, the opening up of infrastructure requirements funding to private foreign direct investment is the only way. The government needs to spend its own money, income, on social welfare, on creating poverty cushion, healthcare, education, so that it can allow international and local investors to put in money into infrastructure deficiency and provide the gaps, like GE has done with railway. But they are bringing coaches and management. Somebody needs to build the track. And I'm happy that the government is also going to privatize that, concession it. So the more we open ourselves, the airports, the seaports, our roads, our railway infrastructure to foreign direct investment, the more capacity for transformation that we're opening up, for standardization and efficiency. And many times, societies have, the English and Americans built Dubai. They built Hong Kong. Over 50 years, they've handed over to the citizenry and the government. So we need to open ourselves to foreign, and not because of the money alone, but because of the capacity and standardization and the training that our locals can have. So by the time they're exiting or reducing their ownership, local entrepreneurs can take over, and you have a workforce that has been trained and standardized. That is the path to economic growth based on increasing or increasing our ranking in the ease of doing business, that will show that we are ready. Because there's a deluge of capital all over the world looking at where to birth, looking at bankable projects. And if you look at the dynamics and the evolution of this country, by 2050, projected to be the third largest country in the world after China and India, you can see that every single money is looking at opportunities in Nigeria. We just have to get our acts together. And the ease of doing business is the indication to the world that indeed we are ready to play the way it is played and allow global standards to come in and assist us to improve our infrastructure, to improve our standards, to train our people, and to grow this country to the level where Nigerians in the next couple of decades can be again in charge.